Look who was feeling well enough to put on makeup. Hello, my name is Annalisa, and this is going to be a video about what I've been reading for the first half of September. I can't believe we're halfway into September, and the reason this video is not on my usual Tuesday is because I didn't have the energy earlier, but I do have it today, so we're gonna film. And I actually did some pretty good fall type reads, so let's start with the audiobooks. Dragonfruit by Micah Lucier. I actually read this a couple of months ago and totally forgot to talk about it, so I wrote it down to finally talk about it. This story is inspired by Pacific Island mythology, and it is in a world where if you eat or absorb the essence of a dragon fruit, which is the egg of a dragon, you will basically get sort of either what you wish for or your greatest malady cured. And a while ago, someone stole the dragon fruit that was supposed to be used to heal the princess, and used it to heal his child. And now the child's grown up and has lived in exile from this country and is finally coming back. And there's all these various people who are chasing dragons and who think that they sight a pregnant dragon and are now on the hunt to get this next dragon fruit. And so we follow a couple of people going after this dragon fruit, mostly to save the princess, who is still alive but is sort of catatonic. And I really like the two main characters, and also quite a few of the side characters I really enjoyed. And overall I felt like it could have been fleshed out a little bit more, and I would definitely read more by this author. So I gave it 4 stars. The Bright Mirror, which is a collection of Solarpunk stories by women from all over the world. I really enjoyed this. I loved learning more about Solarpunk as a genre and all the different ways of exploring it. I loved seeing the commonalities and also the differences, and whether things were set in such a way that climate catastrophe had happened before people were able to change the way they were doing things, or if people were able to avert that. Either way it was written was very fascinating. Some stories were more expansive and about things going on around the world, and some were very small stories focused on the particular life of a person or their family. And one of my favorites was about a man who wanted to cook something for his grandpa that would remind his grandpa of when he was younger, and had much more access to different ingredients, and that connected him a lot to his culture, and how he tries to make something for him, and also gets closer to his co-worker at the greenhouse research place. Yeah, I am so glad that I got to read this and see what Solarpunk looks like from so many different perspectives. Oh, that one wasn't an audiobook, and neither is the next one. I thought I had multiple audiobooks to talk about, but it was just Dragonfruit. So next one is Never Was Still at Night, edited by Shane Hawk and Theodore C. Van Alst Jr., who I got to hear about the publishing story of how this book came to be from on a live that was hosted by Michael LeBourne on his bindery. I think at some point I told you about that, so that's why Michael's bindery and also Naomi's bindery, who co-hosted that event, are linked down below. This is a collection of Indigenous dark fiction, so I really like this collection overall. Some of my favorite stories were Kushtuka and I don't remember what this one is called. I think it's got snakes in the title, but it's one where there's 3 people who go to visit some petroglyphs, which is of particular interest to me because I'm really interested in petroglyphs. And some of them had supernatural elements, so like Kushtuka, and a lot of the ones that had supernatural elements were largely inspired by true events, like types of things that would really happen, and the horror of colonialism. One of the ones that I found most horrifying was the one by Rebecca Roanhorse. What was it called? It's the second story in the anthology. And another one that I found especially horrifying was Quantum. And both of those had very little supernatural stuff going on. Those were mostly the horror of human beings treating people badly. There was one called The Prepper that I felt like was stigmatizing of mental illness. It depicts a person who is described as having delusions, and at one point is questioned by a doctor as to whether he's off his medication. Talks a lot about him having poor mental health and not being able to get to the bottom of it, and he is the villain of the story. So I found that questionable, so do be aware of those aspects of that story going into it, and you will find a as complete as I can make it list of trigger warnings for all of the books in this video down below. Although if you want trigger warnings broken down by each individual short story in the anthology, you'll probably want to look those up separately because they all cover very different topics from each other. But yeah, overall I really enjoyed it and I gave it 4 stars as well. Then we have The Witch Boy and the Hidden Witch by Molly Ostertag. Books about a boy who, in his magical family, all of the men are shapeshifters and all of the women are witches, and they have different types of magic. And so this boy doesn't want to shapeshift. He wants to and can't kind of figure out how to shapeshift, and he wants to learn the magic that the women are studying, and everyone gets kind of angry about him and about that and won't allow him to do that. And the point of that first one is all about how restrictive gender norms like that are like gonna only lead to harm and don't reflect reality. And then the second book follows on with the story with a couple of new characters and seeing again some old characters and learning more about witchery and the different ways that a person can be hurt and how that can lead them to lash out at others, particularly about family wisdom and how being cut off from your family can cause you to lose access to that and can be really hurtful. So I really enjoyed both of those. 5 stars to both. Then we have Mexikid by Pedro Martin. This is a graphic novel and I really enjoyed it. It is particularly about when Pedro was a kid and his family realized that his grandpa was having a hard time down in Mexico taking care of himself and taking care of his various animals because he was an animal and landowner, and so they decided they're going to go down and get him and bring him back to the US to live with them in their 11-person family. So I really like the way he introduces his 8 siblings, and he talks a lot about the experience of being somewhat American and somewhat Mexican. That was really interesting, and I really like the stories about his grandpa, and the way he interacts with his siblings produces a lot of hilarity, so I highly recommend. 5 stars. Then we have The Perils of Lady Catherine de Bourgh by Claudia Gray. This is the 3rd in a series of mysteries with a hint of romance that are set in a world where Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy have grown up, have had a kid who's now basically a grown-up, and the Tilneys have also had a kid. Those are the characters from Jane Austen's Northanger Abbey. All of the characters are living in the same world from the other books as well, and things keep happening to them that involve murders, and so these 2 mostly grown-up kids start investigating, and they have so far in the last 2 books solved 2 murders, and so when Lady Catherine, who is a character from Pride and Prejudice, starts feeling that someone is trying to kill her, she calls them in and wants them to solve the mystery, because of course bringing in the constabulary would be very bad for everyone involved's reputation and would be, you know, a scandal. So I had a lot of fun with this. Mr. Darcy, who the younger Mr. Darcy, is autistic, and I really like the representation. The author does have an authenticity reader who looks over everything to do with Jonathan in that area, and I think that they just do a great job. And I also really like the little extremely slow burn relationship between Mr. Darcy and Miss Tilney. And that's about all I can say about it, because it is the 3rd book in a series, but I really enjoyed it, and I hope more people pick this up. I want it to be a very popular series. So I'd love to know how your September is going so far, and if you have a favorite fall activity or food or drink, I'd love to hear about it below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh, and if you'd like to leave an emoji, how about something orange? Bye!